30, 2024, News Report 1. According to a report from AFP, on May 30, the High Court of Hong Kong delivered its verdict on the first case in the history of Hong Kong involving subversion of state power. Judges designated by the national security law ruled that out of the 16 defendants, 14 were found guilty while the remaining 2 were acquitted. The Department of Justice stated its intention to appeal immediately, with this verdict being seen as a severe blow to the democratic camp by Hong Kong's judicial system. This case originated in July 2020 during the primaries for the Legislative Council elections, which saw over 600,000 Hong Kong citizens participate in the voting, a widely popular event in Hong Kong's democratic society. However, the Hong Kong government perceived this as a means to suppress democracy. In January 2021, the Hong Kong police arrested 47 individuals, including lawyers, scholars, journalists, former legislators, and social workers, all of whom had participated in the primaries. This marked the largest arrest of political prisoners in Hong Kong since 1997, with the 47 defendants remaining detained for over 3 years. The trial of this case was notable for its lack of a jury, with judges appointed by the national security law, sparking widespread attention. During the trial, the judges alleged that the defendants' participation in democratic primaries constituted acts of subversion against the state, accusing them of attempting to unlawfully seize control of the Legislative Council and exert pressure on the government. However, this verdict has been widely questioned, with critics arguing that the judges applied political standards in their judgment, depriving the defendants of their right to a fair trial. The defense of the defendants will begin on June 25. Prior to this, over 100 Hong Kong citizens have queued outside the courthouse, hoping to personally attend the trial. Meanwhile, a large police presence surrounds the courthouse to ensure the smooth progress of the trial. The international community has also expressed concern over this case. Australian Foreign Minister Wong Ing-sien issued a statement strongly opposing the verdict and expressing concern for the convicted Hong Kong Democrats. Human rights organizations criticized the Chinese government for reneging on its commitments and depriving the people of Hong Kong of their basic rights. Amnesty International pointed out that the Hong Kong government weaponized the Hong Kong version of the national security law, leading to almost complete cleansing of the opposition and rapid erosion of human rights in Hong Kong. News Report 2. Bloomberg reports that since April, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, SAFE, in China's coastal regions has been issuing verbal guidance to enterprises, instructing them to reduce or delay large-scale foreign exchange purchases, especially purchases of US dollars. In other words, companies are being asked to postpone converting renminbi into US dollars. Insiders revealed that SAFE has set quotas for foreign exchange purchases for enterprises over a certain period and instructed companies planning to list overseas to reduce the amount of dividends repatriated from within China, while encouraging these companies to distribute dividends in renminbi overseas. Bloomberg points out that since the beginning of this year, pressure on renminbi purchases has significantly increased, and SAFE is taking measures to alleviate this pressure. On May 30, the renminbi closed at 7.2498, up 32 basis points from the previous trading day. The offshore renminbi exchange rate was 7.2736, while the offshore renminbi exchange rate at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time was 7.2529. The central parity rate of the renminbi for the day was 7.111, a decrease of 5 basis points. The purpose of the State Administration of Foreign Exchange's series of measures is to alleviate pressure on the renminbi exchange rate. Clearly, there is significant depreciation pressure on the renminbi in the medium term, and the People's Bank of China faces significant challenges in the foreign exchange market. By limiting foreign exchange purchases, SAFE aims to stabilize the renminbi exchange rate and has advised companies to postpone currency exchanges given the current exchange rate pressure. From the current situation, the People's Bank of China is striving to maintain stability in the renminbi exchange rate. Therefore, for enterprises and individuals with foreign exchange needs, delaying currency exchanges may be more advantageous. News Report 3. Reuters reports that on May 29, China lifted the import ban on 5 major Australian beef suppliers. In response, Australian Agriculture Minister Walt expressed that this was good news for Australian beef suppliers. The Australian government will continue to work to lift the import ban on 2 other beef suppliers. Australia is China's largest beef supplier. In 2020, due to the Australian government's investigation into the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Chinese government used economic coercion to stop importing Australian beef. However, these coercive measures did not achieve the desired effect. As China's economy declined after the pandemic, the Chinese government began seeking to restore relations with countries such as Australia and Canada, gradually lifting import bans on Australian products. Following coal, it is now the turn of beef and wine. Earlier reports suggested that Chinese Premier Li Keqiang would visit Australia in June. The partial lifting of the beef import ban may create a favorable atmosphere for Li's visit to Australia. However, China has not lifted the import ban on all beef suppliers, reserving several as bargaining chips. Meanwhile, on May 30, Chinese customs announced the resumption of imports of frozen beef from Russia, as well as products such as beef hooves and stomachs. However, previous imports of Russian pork had led to an outbreak of swine fever in China, lasting for at least 2 years. News Report 4. Bloomberg reported that the Silk Road Fund, funded by the Chinese government, announced on May 29 that it would sell 9% of its stake in the Italian tire manufacturer Pirelli, valued at €512.1 million. The reason for the sale is that the Italian government, citing national security reasons, restricted the influence of Chinese investors on Pirelli last year, prohibiting them from appointing members to the board of directors. According to the terms of the transaction, the Silk Road Fund will sell 90 million shares of Pirelli at a price of €5.69 per share, which is 8% lower than Pirelli's latest closing price. In addition to the Silk Road Fund, the ChemChina Group holds 37% of Pirelli's shares, making it Pirelli's largest shareholder. Bloomberg reported last year that ChemChina Group was considering selling its stake in Pirelli. In 2022, after Mario Draghi became Prime Minister of Italy, the Italian government began to distance itself from China. On December 6 of last year, Italy formally notified China of its withdrawal from the Belt and Road Initiative. Pirelli is a national treasure-level enterprise in Italy and one of the world's top 5 tire manufacturers. The Italian business community is very concerned that China gaining access to Pirelli's technology would pose a serious threat to Italy's economic and technological security. News Report 5. China's Ministry of Commerce, General Administration of Customs, and Central Military Commission jointly issued a notice on May 30 stating that to safeguard national security and interests, China will prohibit the export of aircraft engines and their components from July 1. In addition, related design drawings, process specifications, and processing procedures are also prohibited from being exported. This move has sparked much questioning, as China mainly relies on imports for aircraft engines. For example, the engines for China's commercial aircraft C919 are produced by a joint venture between General Electric and Safran Group of France, and China does not have the capability to produce aircraft engines completely independently. Prior to the Ukraine war, China's fighter aircraft engines were mainly imported from Motor Sich, a Ukrainian company that is one of the world's largest helicopter and aircraft engine manufacturers. China had tried to acquire Motor Sich, but the attempt was halted by Ukrainian President Zelensky. Unable to purchase engines from Ukraine, China began dismantling Ukrainian engines for reverse engineering. Last year, China Aviation Engine Group announced that it was testing a new turbofan engine, but there was no further news. This situation is not uncommon, as news often circulates for a while and then disappears. Although China has made some progress in the development of aircraft engines, it still faces significant challenges in completely relying on domestic production. Therefore, the decision to ban the export of aircraft engines and related components seems somewhat ridiculous, as China still highly depends on imports in this field. News Report 6. The Liberty Times reported that on May 20, the Ministry of Justice in Taiwan issued a statement claiming that 8 Chinese companies were illegally poaching high-tech talent in Taiwan. From May 27 to 30, the Ministry of Justice organized 5 district prosecutors' offices to simultaneously search the offices of these 8 Chinese companies in Taiwan and took dozens of company executives for investigation. The 8 Chinese companies involved include Xingtai Optoelectronics, Lishuan Precision, Shenzhen Guerue Technology, Zhejiang Dahua, Yuchuang Semiconductor, Hairui Innovation, Hangzhou Wanggao, and Nanjing Chuxin. Among them, Zhejiang Dahua attempted to evade regulation by insuring employees under a labor dispatch company. The other 7 Chinese companies set up offices in Taiwan without permission and recruited research and development personnel. The Taiwan Investigation Bureau stated in the statement that after Director Chen Beiling took office, he vowed to maintain national security, ensure Taiwan's competitiveness in the high-tech field, focus on cracking down on Chinese companies' illegal poaching of high-tech talent, and conducted a series of investigation and search operations to warn relevant personnel not to harbor illusions. It is not uncommon for Chinese companies to poach high-tech talent in Taiwan, but the crackdown on such cases has intensified significantly since Lai Ching-te took office, which is different from Tsai Ing-wen's style. News Report 7. Caixin reported that the Tesla roof rights protection incident that occurred 3 years ago caused a sensation. Tesla subsequently sued the 2 owners who were asserting their rights. On May 30, the Qingpu District Court in Shanghai ruled that the female owner, Zhang, must publicly apologize to Tesla and compensate for the loss of 170,000 yuan. The incident occurred on the first day of the Shanghai Auto Show on April 19, 2021. 2 Tesla owners, wearing clothing with "brake failure" printed on it, were asserting their rights at the Tesla booth. Zhang stood on the roof of the car shouting slogans. The 2 owners claimed that the accidents involving their purchased Teslas were caused by brake failure, but they refused to accept the judicial appraisal of the vehicles. In November of last year, the court ruled that one of the owners had infringed on Tesla's reputation and ordered her to apologize to Tesla and compensate 2,000 yuan. The court conducted an appraisal of the Tesla owned by this owner, which showed that there were no brake issues with the accident vehicle and it met national technical standards. The cause of the accident was that the owner mistook the accelerator pedal for the brake pedal, so the vehicle not only did not decelerate when the accident occurred but instead accelerated. On May 30, the court ruled on the other owner, Zhang, determining that Zhang deliberately chose to assert her rights at the Shanghai Auto Show to attract media attention for reporting purposes. The court found that her behavior not only disrupted public order but also significantly lowered Tesla's social evaluation. In addition, Bloomberg News reported that on May 30, the Qingpu District Court in Shanghai held a hearing on Tesla's lawsuit against automotive blogger Feng Shimin for defamation. The court ruled on the spot that Feng Shimin must publicly apologize and compensate Tesla 250,000 yuan. Tesla previously stated that information provided by netizens indicated that Feng Shimin was the main planner of the auto show rights protection incident. News Report 8. Xinhua News Agency reported that the Ministerial Conference of the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum was held in Beijing on May 30, with President Xi Jinping attending the opening ceremony and delivering a speech. Xi Jinping stated that China is willing to continue to promote the leapfrog development of its relations with Arab countries, increase investment in and cooperation with Arab countries. China supports the establishment of a Palestinian state, supports Palestine's membership as a full member of the United Nations, and supports holding larger-scale international conferences. At this China-Arab Cooperation Forum, China invited leaders from Arab countries such as Egypt, the UAE, Bahrain, and Tunisia to attend. As China is the largest buyer of Arab oil, it seeks more cooperation beyond this role. The main reason China supports Arab countries is that Arab countries oppose Israel, and opposing Israel also means opposing the United States, so China chooses to support Arab countries. This antagonistic relationship reflects the long-term confrontation between China and the United States, which has not changed since the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949. China supports whatever the United States opposes, and opposes whatever the United States supports, without exception. News Report 9. The Washington Post reported that former U.S. President Trump recently stated at a fundraising event in New York that if Russia invaded Ukraine during his presidency, he would bomb Moscow. If China invaded Taiwan, he would bomb Beijing. This statement surprised Trump's supporters, and some were even scared. In addition, Reuters reported that James Gilmore, former U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, recently stated in Taiwan that Trump is not an isolationist, he just hopes that America's allies will pay more attention to their own defense. Gilmore believes that Trump, if elected president, would support Taiwan by selling weapons to it. In an interview in February of this year, Trump stated that if elected president, he would not restart the trade war with China but would consider imposing tariffs of over 60% on Chinese goods. News Report 10. The South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff announced that North Korea launched dozens of short-range ballistic missiles from the Pyongyang-Sunan area to the Eastern Sea on the morning of May 30. The missiles flew 350 kilometers before falling into the Eastern Sea. The report stated that although North Korea often launches ballistic missiles, launching dozens at once is rare. The Japanese Coast Guard stated that these missiles fell shortly after being launched. Representatives for North Korean affairs from the United States, Japan, and South Korea held a teleconference on May 30 and strongly condemned North Korea's actions, believing that they violated United Nations Security Council resolutions and threatened the peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula and the international community. The three parties expressed their intention to communicate closely and cooperate with the international community to deal with North Korea's provocations. In addition, on the previous day, North Korea released over 260 balloons filled with feces and garbage towards South Korea and emitted radio waves to interfere with South Korea's GPS positioning system. Although this attack did not cause substantive damage to the South Korean military, South Korea's Ministry of Science and Information Communication and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport are on alert. News Report 11. According to a report by South Korean television, data released by the Korea Tourism Development Bureau on May 30 showed that South Korea received 1.46 million foreign tourists in April, a year-on-year increase of 64%, but still equivalent to only 90% of the same period in 2019, not yet fully recovered to pre-pandemic levels. Among the visitors to South Korea, the largest number came from China, with 123,000 people, followed by 118,000 from Taiwan. The proportions were basically the same as in 2019, with Chinese tourists recovering to 83% and Japanese tourists to 80%. The number of American tourists increased by nearly 20%, and Taiwanese tourists increased by 4%. The recovery of Chinese tourists has not yet reached pre-pandemic levels, possibly due to the impact on Chinese consumption ability and a lower willingness to travel abroad. The recovery of Japanese tourists has also not reached pre-pandemic levels, possibly due to the depreciation of the yen leading to increased costs of overseas travel. In addition, according to data released by the Japanese government on May 29, Japan's domestic consumer confidence index in May was 36.2, a decrease of 2.1 points from the previous month, hitting a new low for the year. It has declined for the second consecutive month, with over 90% of Japanese believing that prices will rise, reflecting unstable incomes and concerns about price increases. News Report 12. According to data released by the U.S. Department of Labor on May 30, the number of initial claims for unemployment benefits last week was 219,000, higher than the expected 217,000 and higher than the previous week's 216,000. The number of people continuing to claim unemployment benefits for the week ending May 18 was 1.791 million, lower than the previous week's 1.8 million but higher than the previous value of 1.78 million, the highest since April. Overall, the number of unemployed in the United States is on the rise, indicating a slight cooling of the U.S. job market. Data released by the U.S. Department of Labor also showed that in April, out of 389 metropolitan areas in the United States, 305 saw an increase in unemployment rates, with more than 56 areas seeing an increase of 3% to 5% in unemployment rates. While 56 areas saw a decrease in unemployment rates, 28 areas remained unchanged. Among the 10% of metropolitan areas where the unemployment rate increased by more than 1 percentage point, 9 areas had an unemployment rate exceeding the national level of 3.9%, with Las Vegas having the highest unemployment rate at 5.2%. Additionally, according to a report released by the Federal Reserve, most areas believe that labor supply has improved, but some industries still face labor shortages. Some areas reported a decline in labor mobility. Since March 2022, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by a cumulative 525 basis points, and the labor market is steadily recovering, with conditions for rate hikes gradually being met. News Report 13. The Smithsonian's National Zoo in the United States announced on May 29 that China will once again lend 2 giant pandas to the zoo by the end of this year for a period of 10 years. Under the agreement, the zoo will pay the Chinese Wildlife Conservation Association $1 million in rent annually. This form of lending giant pandas, known as panda diplomacy, is a diplomatic means of the Chinese government, indicating that pandas will be lent when Sino-US relations are good and withdrawn when they are not. Before the normalization of Sino-US relations in 1972, China had given a pair of giant pandas to the Smithsonian's National Zoo. Since then, China has lent giant pandas to other countries' zoos. However, in recent years, as tensions between the United States and China have escalated, American zoos have returned their giant pandas to China one after another. Last year, the 3 giant pandas at the Smithsonian's National Zoo were also sent back to China. Currently, the United States only has giant pandas left at the Atlanta Zoo, but these pandas will also return to China in October this year. In November last year, Chinese President Xi Jinping stated during a meeting with U.S. President Biden in San Francisco, California, that China is willing to lend new giant pandas to the United States as a symbol of friendship between the two countries. In addition to the Smithsonian's National Zoo, the San Diego Zoo will also welcome 2 new giant pandas this summer.